thought that it would be really fascinating to go into the psychology of why I think James went to Silent Hill in Silent Hill 2, the remake. So everyone put on your psychological hats and let's take a look at James and Silent Hill 2. I think that this scene shows a lot of the psychology of what James is going through. That look at himself in the mirror, I think, is much more telling than just looking at yourself in the mirror. To be able to look at yourself in a really honest way can be really scary, especially if you've done things that you have not yet come to terms with. You can also see James is shaking and sweating. He's having an anxiety response, which often happens to us when we have to face things that we're not yet ready to be able to face. And when we talk about going into our own inner psychology or even going into the thoughts of possible psychosis, our inner mind can be a wonderful place or it can be its own manifestation of our own inner hell.
Mary, could you really be in this town?
It's a common thing that we do when we're remembering someone or remembering parts of someone is going back to places that we used to be with them or that we have happy memories for them. And in this case, I would put out the theory that this is not an actual place, that James is not actually there, that this is a manifestation of James's inner nightmare so that he can be able to come to terms with the reality of what has happened. And that's an actual thing that can happen, that sometimes things are so horrific that we create our own reality around it to be able to protect, to be able to deflect, so that we can be able to exist within that. The problem is that it ends up becoming its own prison. We are a prison of our own thoughts, and we have an amazing ability to lie to ourselves for the good or for the bad. And sometimes we've done things that are so horrific that our mind protects ourselves from them until we're strong enough to be able to face it. James is not as shocked and horrified as I would expect him to be if I saw Pyramid Head with these pieces of dismembered mannequin that they've put together into a monstrosity and having them treated in this despondent way. He's not as horrified as you would expect unless perhaps this is something that he's been through before, or this is something that he feels unconsciously perhaps that he actually deserves. To go through the punishment of having to experience the way that he feels that he's treated Mary, to be able to see it from an outside source, to actually go through the penance of living through the horror of what he feels he's put Mary through. Psychologically, I would say that I think James has created this world in his inner mind to go through the suffering the way that he feels that Mary has, to be able to have to witness and experience watching someone treat other people like mannequins, body parts, chopped up pieces, not of a whole person. And that glitching that Pyramid Head does, I would put out the theory that I believe that it is every time that something different happens, possibly every time James relives this, rethinks of the things that have happened, almost like Pyramid Head is downloading a different script this time, or James is reacting in a different way. Because later when you see the underworld, there's a cut in the same closet that James has been hiding in. And I think that that's very common for our own psychology, that when our brain cycles through thoughts or things that we've happened over and over again, it's in the hopes that we will learn from it, do something different next time. And so often we get plagued. We have these intrusive thoughts that will not stop. And that's usually because we want to learn something from it, to be able to do something different next time. It's our brain going through the trauma in the hopes that we will have a better answer and hopefully a better outcome. Like, don't shoot the helmet. I'm just saying, like, if you are trying to protect yourself and the person has a helmet that's like a tank, maybe don't shoot there. Theory that Pyramid Head is there to be able to teach James to have some empathy for the things that he has done. It makes perfect sense that he leaves James alone over and over again, because his job is not to have James end the suffering, but to be able to suffer through it. For James to be able to see it from another perspective, to be able to live through it, in the hopes that he will learn to have more care and thought for the people around him. And that possibly he will keep on going through this cycle until he learns that lesson. And it's kind of interesting because they do go through sensitization sessions to try to help people feel when they don't really understand the cause of their actions. This works for some people to be able to have them feel again, but if you're dealing with someone that does not have any connections to their empathy, someone that would be more on the spectrum of having sociopathy, they just don't feel the same levels of empathy as someone else. Does not mean that they are dangerous or violent or would hurt someone, by the way, but they may not have that same amount of ability to feel. To be able to see it from another perspective can sometimes help those connections connect, and sometimes not.
Mary? No. You're not.
Do I look like your girlfriend?
I can't believe it. Your face, your voice, you could be...
My name is Maria. I don't look like a ghost, do I? See? Warm.
Sorry, I got confused.
Maria is also something that James has created, an optimized version of Mary, someone that is alive, vivacious, sexualized, cares about him and wants him in the hopes that he will care about something, risk something, and also to test his care of, did he actually love Mary? And those are those questions that we can often ask ourselves, especially when we've done something horrible or hurt someone that we believed that we really cared about. And maybe idealized is not the right word. Maybe it's just a very different version that shows aspects of Mary that he had lost when she went through her illness.
Run! Come on, hurry!
And you can see for James, he doesn't go back to get Maria. He goes into the elevator first. There are certain parts of his personality of him taking care of himself before he takes care of those that he loves. Is he yet able to truly risk himself for the love of someone he cares about? The cost of that, the cost of his own flaws in his character. And that dealing with that sense of loss, having someone pulled from you at a cause of your own actions, I think is also really important to James's psychology, to be able to truly feel it. And why would he do that? I think that inside of himself, he feels like he didn't fully understand the cost of his actions when he was in it. Possibly because he was drinking or inebriated or frustrated, and watching someone suffer for a very long time is exceptionally traumatic to those that go through it. And then you end up with the guilt of feeling bad that you are upset of having to go through it because the person who is ill, it's no fault of them. And so because of that, you end up also feeling exceptionally guilty. But it's common and normal to not want to watch someone suffer endlessly or for long periods of time. We end up going through secondary trauma also, and you don't feel just to be able to share your feelings of going through that. And so it causes a lot of inner frustration and inner guilt and possibly shame.
Maria? Maria! I thought that thing killed you. Are you hurt?
Not at all, silly.
But it stabbed you. There was blood everywhere.
What do you mean?
It chased us to the elevator and then...
James, what are you talking about?
And that's why it makes sense that Maria is alive again. That's what James has to go through. This want to be able to protect someone, the relationship with that, the relationship with loss, and Mary at the same time. And so that's another set of proof that this is something that's happening within James's own mind. He has unresolved issues that he feels he deserves to pay a price for in hopes that he will learn something. And we do that. We often replay scripts, replay thoughts in our head in hopes that we can do better. But if we can't accurately see ourselves, then we're not going to make the right changes to be able to actually change who we are, to be able to do different things. You have to do something different and practice it enough to become part of you so that it doesn't happen again and again.
Don't you remember?
Did something happen to you after we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else? You were always so forgetful.
And that mocking of his pain also, it doesn't really fit with who she was before. It's almost like his inner subconscious is going through that animosity of his actions, his own anger and frustration at himself and who he was, because he doesn't truly get it. He doesn't understand what happened just yet. But it is something that he has some thoughts to, because this is his own inner dialogue, his inner voice trying to make him wake up to be able to see it. And sometimes we'll go through flashes, little parts, little pieces that sprout up of something horrible that's happened to us. It can be, though, really difficult. That's why when you're going through something like this, it is much better to go through it with a professional that is trained in being able to handle it. Because when you go through the boxes of things that you've tried to close away or tried to mask who you are as a person to be something else, one is it's highly ineffective, but two, it will slowly start to creep its head into other areas of your life and make them more difficult to have to deal with. So to be able to open them in ways that you can understand it, understand why you're saying these things, and learn from it so that you can come to peace and be able to move on in a more healthy way.
Remember that time in the hotel?
Maria?
You said you took everything. But you forgot that videotape we made. I wonder if it's still there.
For those people that believe that Maria is an actual person, there is no way that she would know this information. Plus, she was stabbed through the heart. There's no way she would live through it. It's something that only Mary and James knew of. And I think that that is one of the most stark things that shows that Silent Hill, all of this, is a manifestation of James's inner turmoil.
How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
So you are Maria.
If you want me to be.
All I want from you is an answer.
Doesn't matter who I am. I am here for you, James. See? I'm real. Don't you want to touch me?
And that want for James to be able to have something tangible when he's lost something. Often when we've gone through loss, we try to grab at other things that are close enough facsimiles of that thing.
Maria.
He suddenly snaps out of being able to feel and becomes despondent. That reminds me a lot of that scene with Pyramid Head when he walks away to be able to just move despondently, almost like he's nullified, like he no longer feels anything for it, like he's starting to have parts that he feels, but he is not yet there. And for people that can't feel sadness or have a hard time attaching to it, it does not mean that you're dealing with sociopathy or other things. Trauma can create situations where we actually lose a part of our emotional content, or if you were punished for feeling sad or feeling angry, sometimes you actually lose one of your base emotions. And that is a completely different thing, something that you can gain back with time and with training. All of our emotions are there to serve a purpose to us. They're all important. Even the ones that we look at negatively are actually there to keep us safe, to keep us protected, to teach us something, to do something for us. So know that if you're missing an emotion or you can't feel something, it doesn't mean that you don't have any emotional content or that you can't feel empathy as well. The way that everyone deals with trauma is different, and that's okay. But if you were punished every time you feel something, you do want to be able to reclaim that. That's a part of you. When you come to the realization that you've done something really terrible, something that you can't take back, something that has repercussions to everything around you, that is really difficult to be able to cope with. In a lot of ways, for many people, they might end up blocking, putting defense mechanisms up, believing the lie that it didn't happen, so much so that you've created a completely other reality, a completely different narrative where this didn't happen. This happens a lot. Our brains are really good at protecting ourselves from the things that might hurt us, especially if it might hurt us too much. So much so that you may even start to believe it. But for James, he's trapped in this world until he can fully come to terms with not just the realization of what he did, but I think that the repercussions and the want to come to terms with who he actually is, what he's capable of. And that, for James, I think, is terrifying, but also I think that he feels like he doesn't actually deserve full forgiveness for that.
Leave her alone. Leave us both the hell alone.
And each time that James goes through this, he has more emotional content. He feels more each time. Now, we could go about it two ways. One is that hopefully this helps James be able to understand the cost of his actions, to be able to see it as a third person. Or perhaps this is his own want to not have forgiveness, to have this be a punishment for him over and over again because he feels he deserves it. You can let me know your thoughts of either side in the comments.
I know what you are. I know why I needed you. that it's all over now. I don't need you anymore.
James finally coming to a realization of their purpose and what the Pyramid Heads were there to teach him, to show him about himself and his actions. And then they extinguished themselves because their purpose was no longer needed. And that actually is something that is very starkly and brutally shown in this, but it is true that we use tools until we no longer need them. And sometimes lessons keep on happening to us. We keep on hitting our head against the wall or sticking our hand back inside of the blender, metaphorically, of course, until we learn that lesson and are able to move on and do better. The problem is that sometimes we're not actually learning these lessons. We're not paying attention to the mistakes that we've made because we're not able to look at things and reflect them back in a really honest way. And that is our job. Our job is to be able to look at our actions and what we did wrong and learn from it and do better. But it takes a lot of strength to be able to look at your own flaws, your own mistakes, so that you can be better. But I would say that it is so very worthwhile to be able to do it. And you don't have to do it in a torturous, brutal way either. It can be peaceful and honest. And so I'm going to go through my favorite of the endings because I think it's so poignant. I think that it shows the cycling that James has been through and that he has probably gone through this many times or will still have to go through this many times. So it will be the Maria ending. If you're planning on roaming the streets of Silent Hill, better not be left unprepared. Weapons? No. The real nightmare when traveling are the roaming charges. So that's why I'm introducing Saily. Saily is an eSIM. It is the better way to deal with traveling the world. Saily is a product of Nord Security, so you know that they're a company that takes security seriously and makes it easy to travel without the risk and stress of being scammed with trying to find a local SIM. What exactly is an eSIM? Well, it's like a local SIM card, but the electronic version of that, which allows you to connect to local networks so you get the fastest connectivity without the worry of losing or having to find a regular, tiny little SIM. It also saves you the time of waiting in line at the airport for your SIM. With Saily, you can choose from several affordable eSIM plans in over 160 countries, 8 regions. So with Saily eSIM, you will always be connected when you need to. So you might be wondering, how easy is it to actually get connected to Saily? It is so simple. All you have to do is follow these 3 steps. One is download the Saily app on your mobile device. And I would say do this while you are still at home so you don't have to worry about it. Then you go to the app and choose which country you'll be visiting. And the cool part is that the price depends on where you're going, so it makes it so much more affordable, which I love. Then you apply my coupon code, which will give you exclusive discount of 15% on your plan. Yes, use my link, saily.com/Georgia, or you can use the QR code right here. And if you have any questions, you do not have to worry because they have 24-hour, 7-day support. They also have regional and global plans. So if you're going to be traveling to many different places, Saily has you covered.
Mary?
James. I've been waiting. It's been so long. Didn't you want to see me?
Yes. More than anything.
And do you see, though, that he says yes, but his head says no, giving a counter thought, which often happens with our microexpressions. And sometimes our microexpressions can be a more honest reflection of how we actually feel. Words are easy, actions are hard.
You're all I ever wanted.
Again, a nod no.
That's not true. Is it? You killed me, James.
And you can let me know if you think that that's literal or metaphorical. Did James actually kill Mary, or does he feel like his inability to be there killed her?
Yes, I did. I couldn't bear to see you suffer.
I know how you saw me, how you felt. You really hated me.
It's true, I may have had some of those feelings. It was a long 3 years. I was so tired.
I guess I understand. I know I was a burden.
Definitely not saying that metaphorically or literally what James did was okay, because it isn't. It is a really hard thing to go through endless or long periods of time of suffering. It's really hard on our system. That amount of stress and distress can cause a physical toll on us and want us to have to escape. And I think that there are also some cues that James used alcohol and anger as also defense mechanisms to keep him from having to be there. And we often want to avoid distressful or painful feelings. And sometimes we're doing that just for our own self-protection. But they're maladaptive, and you should find better ways to be able to cope. Support groups, talking it out, finding other methods, not hurting those that you care about or yourself in the process.
What is this?
It's what you've been looking for.
Let's go.
And that's that coldness of James not even opening the letter that show that in this version of the game, James has not yet learned the lesson. He doesn't yet feel full empathy and understanding, that he just puts it away. That is a chapter that he doesn't want to go back to.
Better do something about that cough.
And that scene shows that Maria also, just like Mary, is also sick. And James is going to be going through this process of having to watch someone that he cares about be sick, and what will be the ending of that story. He may have gone through this many times with Maria, or maybe it's another M name of someone, until he learns this lesson. So you can let me know what your thoughts are, but for me, Silent Hill is James's own inner manifestation of that want for penance, for suffering, and possibly redemption. But you can let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.